5 Live Formula One.
Good evening and welcome to live coverage of round 5 of the Formula One World Championship. The sport rounds out the first triple header of the year on the shores of the Red Sea at the Jeddah Corniche circuit. The sun has set, the floodlights illuminate the 27 corners that make up this incredibly high-speed track where one small mistake leads to the biggest of consequences. The fastest laps of the weekend are about to be set on the fastest street circuit on the calendar. It's time to go qualifying for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and calling you through this one is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me in the commentary box is the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson and McLaren's Formula E driver Sam Bird. Sam, I'm really excited for this one. I think it's going to be a brilliant spectacle.
Do you know what, Harry? This is always my favourite qualifying session of the year. The cars just look absolutely fantastic under the lights, and the speed at which Formula One cars take to this circuit is simply sensational. I cannot wait. It also helps that McLaren are absolutely flying.
They really are. They're flying round all 27 turns. 16 of them go to the left, 11 go to the right. That make up this just over 6.1 kilometre track where you're reaching speeds of north of 330 kilometres an hour. The average lap speed is about 254 kilometres an hour. It is fast, it is furious, it is relentless. But you're right, Sam, it is McLaren who are a step ahead of everybody else. So the question is it Piastri or is it Norris for pole?
Oh, can I sit on the fence? Can I sit on the fence?
Take off that papaya hat.
No, I'm also really intrigued to see what the midfield is like, because we've seen in free practice, Harry, it is so close. Between about 7th and 15th, there's really not much to choose between anybody. So who wants it most and who can do the best lap and drag themselves out of Q2 and into Q3?
Yeah, there's almost kind of 3 sections we're looking at. We've got the McLarens, which we are expecting to lock out the front row, but this is Formula One, so never say never. The smallest of mistakes could throw everything up in the air. And then it's about, well, who's the next best after those McLarens? Well, George Russell and the Mercedes has had a brilliant start to this season and has once again looked quick. But you throw in a Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and actually, compared to last week, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, over 1 lap at least, is looking fast.
You can never, ever discount Max Verstappen, and you're right, Charles Leclerc is looking quite at home in that Ferrari, unlike, I must say, and sadly so, Lewis Hamilton, who's looking a little bit out of sorts this weekend again in his Ferrari. Let's hope he can do a good showing this evening.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton said after practice yesterday that he's just looking to try and get his Ferrari inside the top 10. At the end of FP3 this morning, he couldn't do that. He was in 12th, and I mean, this highlights how close the margins are. If you're a 10th or 2 off of your teammate, that can now equal 3, 4, 5, 6 positions on the grid. So in that midfield battle now that we're looking at, it is brutal. It is a dogfight to get yourself through from Q1 into Q2, and Q1 will get going in a couple of minutes time, by the way, as the drivers make their last final preparations. Do you have a little regime that you do before you go qualifying? Are you sat there, eyes shut, envisaging the perfect lap?
Yeah, you do. So I listen to music 10 minutes before, get me in a kind of hyped up mood, and then once I get in the car, it's laser beam focus, visualize the best lap that I can, and then try and replicate it out there. That's what these 20 drivers will be doing. 20 of the best drivers in the world going head to head as we wait for the green light at the end of the pit lane to signal the start of Q1.
Are you listening to a bit of J-Lo, Eminem? What's on the Sam Bird playlist?
Oh gosh. Nothing that you would like, Harry.
No, come on. Surely.
We're now seeing pictures of Ella Lloyd, the development driver for McLaren, who actually won her first F1 Academy race earlier. So well done, Ella.
Yeah, did very well. Oh, you are a good McLaren ambassador, aren't you?
Of course,
Sam Bird.
Of course. And Alex Dunn for getting a podium today in the sprint race of F2. So all good things are happening at the moment in Papaya.
Yeah, and that's actually worth noting, is we've had a lot of support category racing here in between FP3 earlier and now. How does that affect the track as well, from going from daylight to the evening?
Well, first and foremost, the track temperature right now is down at 37.8 degrees. When we started FP3, it was up in the early to mid-50s. So it's a huge change in terms of track temperature. The rubber, though, that F1 Academy and F2 use is a different compound to what Formula One use. So expect the track to ramp up as we get through Q1.
Well, there are a lot of fans overlooking the pit lane from the nice hospitality suites, trying to get their photos and their videos as the cars queue up and wait for the green light at the end of the pit lane. It goes green, and straight out we have the Haas of Esteban Ocon making his way onto the track, followed by his teammate. It's 17 minutes already on the clock, 17 minutes and 42, 41, 40 seconds remain of Q1, where we will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers as they head out onto the track. And let's check in with Andrew Benson, the BBC's F1 correspondent. Andrew, what are you expecting to unfold over the course of these 3 qualifying sections?
I'm expecting an absolutely titanic battle for pole between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in the McLarens. End of yesterday, I was tipping Lando Norris. I'm not so sure anymore. It's so close between them. It'll be hundredths, I think, between first and second on the grid. I don't think anyone's going to get in between them. And then, but behind them, it's really hard to pick again between Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc and George Russell in 3 different teams, Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes. That's going to be just as exciting as the battle between the 2 McLaren drivers.
If Lando Norris can secure pole at the end of the next hour, it will be his 2nd pole of the season, his 11th of his Formula 1 career. Oscar Piastri looking for his 3rd pole of the season, which would be his 3rd career pole. And you have to say, after last week, Sam, momentum does feel like it's with Piastri.
And momentum certainly is with Oscar, and he's driving brilliantly. Dare I say, I think he's actually been slightly more impressive than Lando so far this season. Okay, Australia was a big disappointment for him, but he's certainly shown a great turn of speed. However, having said that, Harry, I still fancy Lando Norris for pole position as long as he has a mistake-free qualifying.
Well, and that could be said for pretty much everybody up and down the grid. We've seen some spectacular crashes in qualifying here previously. This will be the 5th edition of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix come Sunday evening in the UK. That'll be going lights out from 6 o'clock on 5 Sports Extra. But right now, we are getting going for qualifying as we set the grid ahead of Sunday's race. This first session, Q1, 15 minutes and 41 seconds remain, where we will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers. And Esteban Ocon in the Haas is the first man out of the pit lane on the soft tyre, and the first man going for a flying lap as he navigates over turn 12, as it pitches you up slightly over the curb and releases you out through 13 and down to the left-hander of 13. Banked corner, a 12% gradient there as well, which launches him through 14. Personal best so far, comparing, well, to himself for the time being.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit compromised, wasn't he, by seeing the Ferraris coming out of the pits. That wouldn't have helped him, and he would have just been a little bit hesitant on the brake pedal and throttle in the early stages of Sector 1. As he comes to Sector 2, what's Sector 2 like? I mean, this first lap is a kind of like a sightseer and a banker. He'll be able to go again. It's the fastest we saw so far, although it has now been beaten quite comfortably elsewhere.
Yeah, it's his teammate Ollie Behrman who's actually going well at the moment. How important, though, especially in this first part of qualifying where we'll have 20 cars all out on track, is being in the right place at the right time going to be?
Well, being at the right place at the right time is being there at the end of the session with a clean lap and not getting any traffic. We now see the McLaren of Lando Norris just about to start his lap as he throws it into turn 1. A little bit of traffic on the exit of turn 2. He gets super close to the wall on the outside. A little bit too much curb for me at turn 2. Throws it into 4-5, nice and clean, flat out through this section, and that McLaren is working very nicely.
Out through the right-hander of turn 9. It's almost like a roller coaster ride where you're just hanging on for dear life. Spits him out through 12. Short run down then to the braking zone of that left-hander of turn 13, where you head back on yourself and back towards the start-finish line. Still, though, 14 corners done and a few more to go for Lando Norris. But we are now seeing everybody out on the track, with the exception of the 2 Mercedes and the 2 Racing Bulls still in the pits. So it's about to get very busy on the circuit. Everybody opting for the soft tyre in these early stages. We know the soft tyre and tyre degradation so far seen from that, it's not holding up as long as they would like. So you definitely want to get that banker lap, and then one more as well if you can get it too. Albon to the top of the times in these early stages. It's a 1:28.866. Watch out for the Williams cars. Carlos Sainz too has been performing better. as of late, including last week in Bahrain. And the Alpine, particularly of Pierre Gasly, has been showing a good turn of pace, scored his first points and the team's first points last week, hoping to follow that up once again. To the line then for Lando Norris, 8/10ths clear at the top, a 1:28.026 as the British driver lays down the marker in these early stages. But a reminder, this is Q1. It's all about getting through to the next stage. If you're in the bottom 5 positions at the end of the next 12 minutes and 44 seconds, you will be out of qualifying and you will have made your bed for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Leclerc goes second.
I think that'll be back into the pits and park it for Q1 for Lando Norris. I don't really think that would be beaten by the bottom 5 drivers, but the track will ramp up as the session goes on. Still 12.5 minutes to go. And
Lewis Hamilton's just completed his first flying lap in qualifying, and he doesn't appear to have made any progress, Harry. He's still 3.5 behind teammate Charles Leclerc. 4th place at the moment for Hamilton, but I think he's going to struggle. He's been talking about trying to get into the top 10. I think he might struggle to get into Q3 today.
Well, Hamilton, despite winning and getting pole here back in 2021, the story has not been that bright since then. When he was in the Mercedes, his last 3 qualifyings here in Jeddah, 16th, followed by 8th, then 8th again. It's not the best track for Lewis Hamilton when it comes to qualifyings. But what about Max Verstappen then, the man who set pole position here last year, who has won twice around the streets of Jeddah? Sparks almost lighting up the asphalt on the circuit as he makes his way through turn 23 into the right-hander of turn 24. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who crashed in final practice, or FP2 I should say, on the Friday, recovering as well, has been a couple of tenths off his teammate since bouncing back from them. We'll see what the Japanese driver's got across the line after his teammate, who makes it out of the final corner, hits the DRS line. The rear wing flies open to give you a few kilometres an hour of extra speed in a straight line, and he's a 10th off Lando Norris in these early stages. Verstappen second.
You can see how the track is already ramping up. That rubber from F2 and F1 Academy disappearing. Formula 1 Pirelli rubber going down on the circuit. Yuki Tsunoda quite recently was purple in Sector 2. Oscar Piastri's now gone a little bit quicker as Tsunoda comes to DRS. Flap open, what's he got? 3rd fastest, only 4/10ths off Lando Norris. So I think this track is ramping up nicely.
Yeah, still 10 minutes and 41 seconds remain as Piastri, fastest in the final sector, and by 7,000ths of a second goes to the top. We're still waiting for lap times from the likes of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. We're about to see what Russell's got as he hurls his way towards the final corner, getting up to speeds of over 300 kilometers an hour before he hits the brakes, turns it into the final corner, a left-hand loop which brings you back out, hugs that pit wall as close as he can. 4th fastest, 2.5 tenths adrift of Piastri for Russell.
So we've had the first runs in the first part of qualifying, and the order's exactly as we expected. Piastri and Norris ahead. Oh, there's some damage on the pit straight. What is that? It's
and Antonelli looked like he was about to run over it. It looks like a black bin bag that's floated in onto the circuit. Antonelli was about to run over it and then saw it last minute and managed to get it out of the way. I wonder if it might have just drifted over, so Marshall might be able to pick it up without causing too much of a delay.
Yeah, we've got Piastri and Norris very close at the top, 7,000ths as you said, Harry. Then Verstappen and Russell. Tsunoda's done a good lap to be only a couple of tenths behind it, 3/10ths behind his teammate, and ahead of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. And I think those first runs, Sam, they underline just what an awesome circuit this is, particularly the first sector at Jeddah. And now, not everybody's comfortable about Formula 1 racing in Saudi Arabia, of course, but I think we had a little shot just before the start of the session that underlined how important the money that comes from Saudi Arabia is to Formula 1. There was an aerial shot of a gantry over the pit lane, and standing on it was Stefano Domenicali, the CEO of Formula 1, Chase Carey, the non-executive chairman of Formula 1, and Derek Chang, the new president and chief executive officer of Liberty Media, which owns Formula 1, all together watching the start of qualifying. I don't think I've seen those 3 head honchos of F1 together at one race so far this season.
Well, I think sport in general, to be honest, is... Saudi Arabia, whether we agree with it or not, is becoming a powerhouse within the sporting world. You look at Formula 1, Formula E's involved with Saudi Arabia, boxing, Newcastle United in the Premier League. They are involving themselves and immersing themselves into the sporting world. And I've got to say, with regards to this circuit, I absolutely love the design and really enjoy qualifying, especially qualifying around this circuit.
They're also working on a new track to move the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix to in Qiddiya in a few years' time. Still have yet to begin building that, what looks to be an absolutely spectacular, almost unreal track. So we'll see how that fares. But this, of course, the 5th edition of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at the Jeddah Corniche circuit. Qualifying underway, this first part where we will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers under the lights around this street track. And in that bottom 5, it's Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, Nico Hülkenberg Sauber, the other Aston Martin of Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon in the Haas, who hasn't looked as confident round here as he was in Bahrain, and Gabriel Bortoleto, who has struggled for pace so far this weekend, had to miss out FP2 due to a fuel leak. His teammate Hülkenberg has just put in a decent lap to haul his Sauber up into 12th, but we are seeing, Sam, that track evolution as Lando Norris is next to the line, and he puts 2/10 over his teammate Piastri to go quickest with a 1:27.805.
I do think that everybody from Russell down will have to run again and try and improve, because I see the track just ramping up that much as we... Oh, Hadjar just touches the wall.
I grip the wall, exit top last corner.
We will check.
The rear stepped out, and it was a light touch. I reckon he'll get away with that, Sam.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay, unless the alignment is slightly out, but he should be okay. Lewis Hamilton now down in 18th at the moment. Green in sector 1. What's he got underneath him? There's only 6.5 minutes to go in the session. If this isn't good enough, he's going to have to hurry back to the pits. It's only 2/10 up on Doohan, who's down in 15th at the moment.
Yeah, Hamilton feeling the pressure here. Norris and Piastri are currently the quickest. Verstappen, Russell, Tsunoda the top 5. Alonso, Leclerc, Antonelli, Albon, Stroll the top 10. Then comes Sainz, Hadjar 12 ahead of Hülkenberg. Behrman, then Doohan. And right now, if it ended like this, we would lose Liam Lawson, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon and Gabriel Bortoleto. Lewis Hamilton is just about to come across the line and get himself out of that bottom 5. It's enough for 10th spot. It's a bit closer to his teammate, but he's still 2 positions behind him. Leclerc is 7th, 7/10 off. Hamilton up to 10th, 8/10 off.
So Hamilton was on used tyres on that lap, so I think he'd come into the pits, made a small adjustment to the car and carried out on the same tyres. I think he's going to have to run again, Sam, don't you, with that? He's not got enough of a margin to the cars behind him.
I think everybody Tsunoda down will have to run again. If you look at the gap from P5 Tsunoda, just over 6/10 down from Norris, and then you look at Behrman down in 15th, just 1 second, so 4/10 covering 10 cars. Everybody's going to have to run again, and everybody, it'll be about who does the cleanest and best lap.
The margins so tight in Formula 1 in 2025.
And just to underline that, Fernando Alonso is up in 6th place in the Aston Martin, and that's because he's done a second run on a second set of new tyres. That just goes to underline how important it is to run on that second set of tyres, because there's no way an Aston Martin should be up there in the top 6.
No, I think we are about to see the next runs happening. The sound you're hearing is Alex Albon in the Williams. And actually, the Williams team have been looking good. They're hoping for 2 cars into Q3 and to follow that up with points at the moment after being left pointless for Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz in Bahrain last week, where they expected more. Albon at the end of the first sector, a 10th.5 away from Lando Norris's first sector time. Albon currently 9th, teammate Sainz down in 12th. Sainz still in the pits, but this is Albon then making his way through the right-hander of 15. It's a slight left through 16, and did he touch the wall there with his front left?
I think he did. I think he's just touched the outside wall, trying to give himself the most room possible. Will that slow him down? DRS open. First sector was great. Yeah, he's lost 3.5 in the middle sector, so that's really cost him.
Almost a trick of the eye there, but he did. Front left did make contact with the wall, but almost on board. We were watching Alex Albon, and it didn't feel like it really affected him too much, but he did lose time in that middle sector. Round the final corner now, gets so close to the wall on the exit. Doesn't hit it this time. He's going to finish the lap off. Let's see where this puts him. He still manages to find a good chunk of lap time though, and puts that Williams up into 4th spot. So surely that means is George Russell going to have to go out and run again now, as we see a replay of Pierre Gasly running out in his Williams and taking the tyre warmer with him.
In his Alpine,
apologies, taking the tyre blanket with him, and then having to wheel him back and then try and untangle the tyre warmer from the front right tyre. The mechanics managed to get the job, and off he goes in his Alpine, back out onto the circuit.
No harm done. It's not ideal for tyre warm-up in terms of the surface temp. The amount of surface temp you lose every 10 or 15 seconds is enormous, so not ideal, but he'll be fine.
2 minutes and 54 seconds on the clock. It's currently Norris fastest ahead of Piastri, Verstappen, Albon, Russell the top 5, Tsunoda, Alonso, Leclerc, Antonelli, Hamilton the top 10. Stroll is 11th ahead of Carlos Sainz. Isaac Hadjar is 13th ahead of Hulkenberg, and Ollie Behrman at risk in that bottom 5. Doohan, Lawson, Gasly, Ocon and Bortoleto, but everybody with the exception of George Russell and Lando Norris is out on the track and going again. Jack Doohan managed to get his best qualifying of his career so far in Formula One last week in Bahrain, but was left frustrated with 11th place on the grid. Felt he had more to give. Right now, he's 3/10 up on a space in Q2, but everybody will be improving their lap time in these final few minutes. So crucial around a track like this. We'll see the evolution, the confidence of the driver building as well, and with that comes more speed.
Absolutely, as we're seeing Kimi Antonelli on a good lap as well, lighting up the timing screens with a load of green sectors and a couple of purple mini sectors as well. So we're inbound for a good lap from Kimi Antonelli in his Mercedes.
Yeah, Antonelli coming down in 9th as well. Carlos Sainz has had a good first sector. He's just making his way into the middle sector now. Hadjar actually has done all right in the first sector in the Racing Bulls. They look like they're starting to turn around their weekend, having had a pretty poor start in practice. Hadjar half a second down on Norris in the middle sector at 2. Liam Lawson is vying to get out of Q2. He hasn't looked a shade of himself. Last year we saw performance there from the Kiwi driver. We haven't seen it so far in 2025, but he's got the time on board. Doohan crosses the line and gets himself, but it's only up to 13th. Will that be enough to keep the Australian out of that bottom 5 as Hadjar is next across the line and gets himself up into 10th?
Fernando Alonso, the wily old fox, using Doohan as a massive slipstream down to turn 1. Even though Fernando Alonso is comfortably through at the moment, he knows that he needs something exceptional on this lap if he wants to get through to Q2.
Verstappen's just gone to the top of the times, by the way, 27 thousandths of a second ahead of Lando Norris. We've got a yellow flag out on track. This could be crucial in the closing stages, but it's immediately gone to a green flag again, so that shouldn't change too much. Lawson, tidy lap from the Kiwi. He's up to 11th. That puts Hulkenberg down in 16th ahead of Behrman. Then comes Gasly, Ocon and Gabriel Bortoleto, who are all on laps at the moment. Bortoleto has had an okay start to his first sector, but is tailing off, hasn't shown the pace so far this weekend. Neither really has Esteban Ocon, but has Pierre Gasly got what it takes to get through into Q2, and he skates the wall and out of the final corner, almost dragging it along. He keeps his foot planted with the DRS open. He gets himself out of Q1 and up into 9th as the checkered flag falls at the end of Q1. Ollie Behrman gets himself up into 10th, and it's Lewis Hamilton now who is under pressure here to secure his place in Q2. This is the sound of the 7-time champion. His last 3 qualifyings in Jeddah, 18th, followed by 8th, then 8th again. It's not been the place for Lewis Hamilton. He currently finds himself right on the bubble down in 15th. Stroll will not make it through. He is out. Doohan won't go again either. I think Hamilton will be okay, but only just as he makes his way now to the final corner. Doohan's not on a lap, neither is Hulkenberg. Esteban Ocon won't find anything either, neither will Gabriel Bortoleto, so everybody behind Hamilton is not finding the time. He will be okay, but it will be only just as Hamilton comes to the line. Where does he put himself? Gets himself up into 9th spot, but he left it right to the final lap to do it.
He left it right to the last lap to do it, and I believe that was on a new set of soft tyres for Lewis Hamilton just to get up to P9, so it shows that he's just struggling a little bit for that pace.
Charles Leclerc, his teammate, didn't go out again and was really shuffled down the order 13th. Oh, it all fell away for Gabriel Bortoleto. We had a momentary yellow flag, and I think it was for Bortoleto in the Sauber coming into turn 1, and the rear end stepping round on the Sauber, and that was Max Verstappen who had a good look at it. The two of these two drivers quite good friends off the track.
Good mate.
And that was what Bortoleto had to say about his final attempts. He didn't get it in time. He will be 20th and last. That is Q1 done, and the first part of qualifying out the way. We have lost in 16th place Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, Jack Doohan in the Alpine, Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber, Esteban Ocon's Haas, and Gabriel Bortoleto in the other Sauber. Sam, to me, there's not too many big surprises after the first Q1 session.
No, I think we've seen the slowest cars leave and depart in Q1, but I think the rest of the order is a little bit shaken up with regards to when they went out, the track ramping up, and what tyres they ran. Ocon radio?
Yeah, all is through to Q2.
Okay, good job, guys.
Well, Esteban Ocon happy for his teammate. They do seem to be generally getting along quite well in Haas, but he will not be happy that his teammate is up in 11th and he is down on the last row of the grid in 19th.
No, it's the worst feeling in the world when you get out-qualified convincingly by your teammate. But, you know, if he's being a team player, he has to say that. And it's the right thing to say. So Max Verstappen tops Q1. I think that it's a little bit flattering. He did that lap later on in the session compared to Norris and Piastri. But make no mistake, Harry, I think Max Verstappen, if there's going to be anybody to try and upset McLaren's day, it could be Max Verstappen. Maybe George Russell, maybe even throw in there, as we said, Charles Leclerc, but Max Verstappen, as always, right up there.
Well, walking down the pit lane, a rather forlorn Jack Doohan, who was out-qualified by his teammate. We're just getting another look at the bang that Alex Albon experienced when his front left tyre made contact with the wall on his final flight. Slowed him down, but he had pace in hand.
I hit the wall pretty hard, edge of turn 16 on the left-hand side.
Well, he still managed to finish that session in 6th, so it didn't slow him down too much, and it bodes quite well. There's more time in that Williams yet.
Yeah, it goes to show that the Williams is working very nicely, watching his minimum speeds through Sector 1. I mean, he chucked it through turns, where are they? Turns 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, he was blisteringly quick through there, barely lifted. So I think that Alex Albon, as long as that car is still pointing in a straight line, could be on for a very decent qualifying position, maybe even third row.
Well, let's see. We could be in for some great results for those in the midfield. Let's just then reconfirm those we have lost from Q1. Lance Stroll is out for the third consecutive race this year. Jack Doohan is out in Q1 and has been at 3 of the opening 5 races this season. Nico Hülkenberg starts 18th. That is his lowest ever start in Jeddah. Esteban Ocon, who up until now had never been out-qualified by a teammate around this Jeddah Corniche circuit, well, that stat goes out of the window. It's also his lowest start of the year, equalled with Australia. And Gabriel Bortoleto, the slowest qualifier. For the first time in his short career so far, the Formula 2 rookie, who is down on mileage, having missed the entirety of free practice 2 on the Friday. They're the only representative running, so he will have work to do from the back of the grid, but both Saubers clearly not looking too fast out there on track. And you can hear some George and Max supporters there in the crowd. And I think after Q1, well, they'll be pretty happy with that one, as you can hear.
Yeah, I think the George fan
was
won on that one.
This is the sound of Pierre Gasly from Q1 making his way down to the final corner. Now, I think he made contact on the right-hand side with the exit wall. Oh, it was close. I need to see an off-board. Oh, maybe that was perfect, actually. That was, he didn't touch the wall. There was nothing left, but that was nice from Pierre Gasly.
I think he stroked the wall.
Okay,
Harry,
we'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Caressed.
Treated it how he would want to be treated. That got Gasly through, though, and up. He ended up session through and up inside the top 10. While we wait then for the next part of qualifying, let's just update you with how the standings look coming into this race. It is Lando Norris who leads, but it's a slim lead. 3 points between himself and teammate Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is third ahead of George Russell. Charles Leclerc rounding out the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. And over in the Constructors, it's McLaren who lead the way. They are 58 points clear.
We're out by 3 thousandths, but it's very, very tight, and we're checking other track limits, so we'll just stay in the car, stay ready.
So we had this last week as well, a couple of late track limits and lap time deletions, particularly Nico Hulkenberg, which the FIA owned up and said we got that one wrong. By the time Q2 had ended, Nico Hulkenberg had already skated through when his lap time should have been deleted before that, and it would have promoted Alex Albon to have a shot. So they'll be hot on that this weekend. Constructors, it's McLaren 58-point gap ahead of Mercedes, Red Bull third, Ferrari fourth, Haas best of the rest at the moment. Fifth spot for them ahead of Williams. Aston Martin Racing Bulls just behind them in eighth. Alpine got their first points on the board last weekend in Bahrain, so they are now ninth, and it's Sauber 10th. But every team has scored points now as we have got to the fifth round of the Formula One calendar. Q2 underway, 14 minutes and 27, 26, 25 seconds remain as we look to eliminate once more the slowest 5 drivers from this session as they vie to get in to the top 10.
Nice shiny brand new soft compound tyres there on the McLaren. That shine will disappear over the first few corners, and then it's about preserving that tyre life, not taking too much out of it, but trying to maintain that surface temperature on this outlap, get temperature into the brakes, and then slingshot yourself out of the last corner to try and do a lap good enough early doors to get through to Q3.
Congestion in the pit lane as they all peel out one by one and file along towards the end of it as the green light has now come on.
The Mercedes and the Red Bull look like they're going on a used set of option tyre, the soft tyre, whereas the McLaren's going straight out on the new soft tyre.
And slowly heading out of the pit lane. This is where they try and give themselves adequate space on track. Of course, one thing that becomes easier is a little bit of traffic management now that we have 5 less cars on the circuit, but somehow that doesn't always end up that way. Cars on track already: Behrman, Gasly, Hadjar, Sainz, followed by Piastri, Alonso, Antonelli and Alex Albon now making his way down towards turn 1 for his first flying lap. I have to say, we're just seeing a replay of Kimi Antonelli making his way.
Man, that was close.
It's a rather tight garage to get out of for Kimi Antonelli, who's just having to weave between people, the tyres, before he gets out into the fast lane and makes his way onto the track to go, on average, 254 kilometres an hour round a lap of this Jeddah Corniche circuit. Just over 6.1 kilometres, 27 turns, 16 to the left and 11 to the right, where you are reaching speeds of north of 330 kilometres an hour. And we are in Q2 as we look to see the next 5 slowest cars eliminated come the end of the next 12 minutes and 17, 16, 15 seconds. And right now, well, Sam Bird, we're expecting possibly 2 Williams cars in the top 10 shootout. Alex Albon is the first car out on track, setting a flyer, and he's looking planted right now as he heads over the crest at turn 23.
Yeah, I thought his turn in at turn 10 was a little bit early, but he got away with it, just flat out through 11 and into 12. Doing a really good, solid job this weekend is Alex Albon. That wall hit doesn't seem to have affected the car in any way. A couple of little moments on the steering wheel through the last corner. DRS now wide open. What's it going to be across the line? It's a 28.5.
Yeah, first lap on the board then from the Thai driver, who up until Bahrain had been in Q3 and scored points at every round so far, looking to try and get himself back there. Oscar Piastri. We're expecting the 2 McLarens to be fighting it out for pole position under the lights, and well, so far it has been nip and tuck between the Australian and the Brit, but coming through in the early part of this lap looked a bit squirrely from Piastri.
A bit squirrely and potentially, dare I say it, a bit of track limits maybe, and maybe the stewards will be looking at that. What's his first sector like? It's 2.5 tenths up on Albon, but definitely the rear of the car was unhappy early on in sector 1.
Making his way through turn 14 now, almost flat out planted is his foot to the floor before he gets to the right-hander of 16, chucks it into the left-hander of 17, out through 18, a slight kink, sees him through 19. They are corners, but you are almost barely moving the steering wheel as you now approach the tricky left-hand turn 22. Sees you run out slightly wide over the curve, which pitches the car up over 23, round the right-hander towards 24, and then it arcs back towards the left-hand side through turns 25 and 26, as all you see are floodlights before you then hit the brakes into the left-hander, the final corner, which loops back on yourself. Fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Verstappen's quick in the first sector, though, to the line with DRS for Oscar Piastri. 6/10 clear at the top of the field, a 1:27.6.
And he absolutely wasn't going to give his teammate Lando Norris a tow down towards turn 1, got straight out of the throttle. So Lando Norris now up and running in sector 1.
Yeah, everybody out on track indeed as Albon comes into the pits after his first run. So the first flyers in this Q2 session underway then. Verstappen going well on his lap at the moment, fastest of anybody in the first sector. We're still looking to see what Norris can do. He's just come towards the end of the first sector, but hasn't managed to pit Verstappen's sector one time. The Dutchman, the reigning champion, goes to the top of the times by a 10.5, a 1:27.5. It's Verstappen, Piastri, Russell third, Sainz, Antonelli the top 5, then it's Gasly, Albon, Behrman, Hadjar and Alonso the top 10. Lap time still to come from Norris, Tsunoda, the 2 Ferraris and Liam Lawson's Racing Bulls. This is Charles Leclerc out of the final corner. First lap from the Ferrari driver, about to come onto the board, hits the DRS button, takes himself to the line, half a second adrift, puts his Ferrari up into 4th.
Max Verstappen is in the running for pole here. I'm going to say that right now. He is looking really impressive. I know what you said about the Q1 lap, but here he is on new tyres, same as Piastri, a 10.5 ahead at the beginning of Q2. He's definitely in with a shout.
Well, it was a couple of years ago, wasn't it, when Thanks, Adam. Warm welcome to listeners on 5 Sports Extra. You're joining us in the middle of the second part of qualifying for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We're under the lights at the Jeddah Corniche circuit. 27 relentless corners make up this 6.1 kilometre track, where you're averaging speeds of 250 kilometres an hour round one lap. We're seeing the fastest ones being set right now. And so far, we have been expecting it to be a battle for pole position between the 2 McLarens. They've looked the class of the field. But Sam Bird, the McLaren's Formula E driver, who was alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, could Max Verstappen throw a spanner into the works here?
Never ever discount Max Verstappen, especially in qualifying. You know that he's one of the best ever, I would say, in qualifying. We're seeing replays of Oscar Piastri using all the road and more in Sector 1, very, very close to track limits, but just about keeping it inside. And now we're seeing a replay of Lando cheekily getting a lovely little toe off Oscar Piastri to start his lap. But going back to Max Verstappen, Harry, absolutely, he is really there and there to pick up anything, pick up the spoils if he can, if McLaren make any mistakes.
Right now, just if you're just joining us, after Q1 we lost Lance Stroll's Aston Martin in 16th ahead of Jack Doohan's Alpine, Nico Hülkenberg Sauber 18th ahead of Esteban Ocon's Haas, and Gabriel Bortoleto 20th and last in the Sauber. So we are 6 minutes and 48 seconds remaining of Q2. We've had our first runs now, so back to the pits for the majority of the field as we have a tyre change, and we'll head out for the final flyers. It's Norris who is half a tenth ahead of Max Verstappen. Then comes Oscar Piastri, a couple of tenths back in third. Russell 4th, Leclerc the top 5. Then comes Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, followed by Hamilton, Sainz, Antonelli and Gasly the top 10. Albon is 11th, who is out there on track running a bit out of sequence with the rest of the field. Ollie Behrman is 12th.
Just double check the front of the flag. I hit it quite hard with the exodus 4 into 5.
Understood. We'll have a look.
Well, he did hit it, Sam, and there were sparks to confirm that.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw the mechanics actually putting the car up on the stands, just the mini stands, just to make sure that the plank wasn't damaged. If he's damaged the floor, that could have a great effect on the handling of the car through this lap, because as we know, the floors on these cars are such an important part of the aerodynamics.
As it currently stands, just to finish off, Behrman was 12th, Hadjar is 13th, Alonso 14th and Lawson 15th, with just over 5.5 minutes then left on the board. it's so fascinating how they can turn things around, Red Bull and Max Verstappen in particular, from seemingly being out of the hunt for a pole to suddenly just maybe teasing us with something special.
So it's been a bit of a pattern this year that this has happened, and Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, I think he's kind of getting a bit amused by it, because he says to people, don't look at practice times, because engine modes, fuel loads and so on, they can really skew the picture. And he thinks Red Bull are basically, obviously it wasn't the case in Bahrain last weekend, but he thinks fundamentally Red Bull have pretty much been there most of the year, and they underplay their hand on Fridays by running the car in a different spec than McLaren do, less close to the optimum, if you like. So I pretty much guarantee that when Stella is interviewed after this session, he'll be saying exactly that to everybody.
Well, let's see what unfolds over the next 4.5 minutes. Alex Albon is vying to get himself back into the top 10, qualified in every round, in every race, including the sprint so far. Inside the top 10, that came to an end in Bahrain, hoping to get back there, and he was rather frustrated after last week's antics in the desert, hoping to find himself up there. And at the moment, well, he's just popped in a time good enough for 6th fastest. It's still 6/10 off the McLaren pace, but that is the margin they have at the moment over the remainder of the field almost.
Well, it's half a second to Leclerc in P5. We're now seeing both Ferraris going out on another new set of soft tyres. I can imagine that if they make it through to Q3, they're only going to have one left to have a crack at pole position. If they both make it through. I'd say that Charles Leclerc should do. I'm concerned about the pace of Lewis, because I think Gasly's got a little bit more. I think Alonso, I'm not sure. I think that's probably a little bit too much to ask for where Aston Martin are at the moment. And we see Max Verstappen on a set of used, Yuki Tsunoda on a set of new soft tyres.
Yeah, Tsunoda at the moment is 6/10, almost 7/10 back from his teammates after the first run. So Red Bull wanting to make sure he has got the tyre life to find himself into Q3. Max Verstappen feeling confident then that he can challenge the McLarens and get himself not only through to the top 10, but perhaps split the McLarens or even steal pole position right underneath them.
I don't think this lap for Max Verstappen really matters. I think that this is just another sighter, another opportunity to bank some confidence and some experience around this circuit. The guy's full of confidence anyway. He's a 4-time world champion, but it's just another lap flat out around the Corniche circuit.
With 2.5 minutes on the clock, this Q2, where the main focus is just getting through into the top 10. With the slowest 5 drivers eliminated. Right now, as it stands, that would be Gasly, Behrman, Hadjar, Alonso and Lawson.
So Norris has not gone out for a second run by the looks of it. He's still in the pits with just over 2 minutes left. He could still go out, but he hasn't gone out yet.
This is the sound of Kimi Antonelli, the Italian rookie who has stepped up to fill the shoes of Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, making his way through the banked turn 13, the left-hander, which sees you feed out through 14 and 15, keeping his foot absolutely planted before he slightly heads to the left before swings it into the right-hander of turn 17. Sainz is also out on a lap, but he's down on time in the first sector, but could still be decent for Carlos Sainz, hoping to join his teammate Alex Albon up inside the top 6.
Well, Alex Albon will now be crossing his fingers and his toes and praying the people in and around him don't improve too much. He's sat in 6th at the moment, but I think he's in danger of dropping out of the top 10. Only time will tell. Only 1 minute 20 seconds remaining.
Albon ran out of sequence as well compared to the rest of the field. Russell has just crossed the line to put himself up into 3rd position. Antonelli has now made it to the line and he has put in a decent lap. 5th place for Kimi Antonelli, still behind his teammate and a couple of tenths off the pace compared to George Russell. This is Carlos Sainz, his teammate Alex Albon in the pits, won't come out again. Sainz looking to cause some pain here for those up inside the top 10. Makes it through, and that will be troublesome for his teammate Albon, who falls down to 8th as Carlos Sainz makes his way up to 6th position. Gasly, Behrman, Hadjar, Alonso, Lawson are all at risk here. So too Lewis Hamilton. So too Yuki Tsunoda.
So Ollie Behrman down in 12th. He's not going to be able to improve and go through to Q3. He's just completed his lap. What's Isaac Hadjar got underneath him? 13th currently, and only good enough for P11.
That's just going to save Lewis Hamilton, but Liam Lawson could cause some trouble here as he comes to the line. Nice tidy lap for Lawson, who puts Hamilton down inside the bottom 5. Hamilton down to 11th. Lawson right on the bubble in 10th place. Yuki Tsunoda as well is coming through the middle sector. He's only in 9th. Charles Leclerc from 7th only goes up 1 position into 6th. Pierre Gasly's having an okay run at it. It's going to be nip and tuck. Hamilton to the line, manages to get himself in 8th place. Tsunoda under pressure here. Could Gasly, could Alonso spoil the Japanese driver's day and see him booted out in Q2? Gasly does. Gasly in the Alpine up to 8th. Tsunoda's found time in the middle sector. Alonso, always a driver who can find something special, but that Aston Martin car can only do so much. But what can it do in the hands of Fernando Alonso? Only 13th place. And Tsunoda will need to find something here to try and biff Alex Albon out of the top 10. Can the Japanese driver do it? Yes, he can. Tsunoda through into Q3 and up into 7th spot. That pushed Hamilton down to 10th, and that'll be done and dusted for Q2. We lose Alex Albon in the Williams at 11th, who will be gutted by that, Sam. They expected 2 cars in the top 10 and nothing splitting him and Hamilton in the end.
It's so close, isn't it, between P7 and P11 and 12. Just, you know, a slight snatch of a wheel, slight delay on the throttle, and you're not making it through. And I think Alex Albon, potentially the good thing about when he went out was that he was going to have a clean lap. The downside was the track ramping up and potentially getting a little bit quicker. He's only missed out by 7,000th of a second. For sure, the track improved by more than 7,000th of a second in the last couple of minutes.
Liam Lawson ended up 12th. Let's hear from him.
Man, sorry guys, that was a pretty damn good lap, to be honest.
Well, he out-qualifies his teammate Isaac Hadjar, and that is still Lawson's best qualifying so far this season. So there are some positives to take away from the Kiwi. Fernando Alonso could only manage 13th, and you have to say that was probably all that Aston Martin had in it for 13th.
Yeah, I don't think that Aston Martin has much fight this year. I think they're all looking forward to seeing what Adrian Newey can bring to the table for 2026.
Behind Alonso, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, the French rookie, 14th. And that will be his second worst qualifying of the season so far. And Ollie Behrman, the British driver who made his debut for Ferrari in place of Carlos Sainz at this track last year, out in 15th spot. Behind them, we lost in Q1 Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, Jack Doohan's Alpine, Nico Hülkenberg's Sauber, Esteban Ocon's Haas, and Gabriel Bortoleto in the other Sauber, as we now have a little bit of a wait before we go through into Q3 and the top 10 shootout and the fight for pole position. This is the serious stuff, Sam, isn't it?
Yeah, this we're now at the creme de la creme of qualifying. Who can stick it on pole position here around the Jeddah Corniche circuit? My money's still on Lando Norris, but Oscar Piastri's right there or with him, but you can never ever discount Max Verstappen. Both Mercedes are going well. Kimi Antonelli up in 5th place in that session. I'm surprised Charles Leclerc's not splitting the Mercedes, but at the front it is an absolute battle between Norris, Verstappen and Piastri.
I think Norris is looking confident. He was the only one who didn't go out for a run at the end there. Verstappen and Piastri both went out on used tyres, admittedly, but for another side lap, another sort of, get into the circuit, what can I do here? I think Norris feels you're a racing driver, Sam, I'm not, but I guess he wouldn't do that only because he feels he knows where he is with the car on the track.
Well, it's an opportunity to make a mistake and potentially put yourself out of Q3 by hitting a wall. We know how challenging and difficult and fast this circuit is. However, don't make a mistake and do a good lap on the slightly used tyres, and that can give you a hell of a lot of confidence as well. So I can see it from both sides. If I was driving and I was in Lando's position, I'd potentially toy with the idea of going out again and just seeing the circuit one more time before going out on brand new set of soft tyres in Q3.
Well, that will be on the way in just a few moments' time. Is Lando Norris feeling comfortable, feeling cool, calm and collected? He's just sat in his cockpit at the moment, getting a bit of air from the fan, being offered water. He's said no and refused that. Doesn't want any distractions, just focusing on what will be the final laps in qualifying. As we head through into Q3, we will have the two McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, the two Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda, the two Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, the two Mercedes of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, with the sole remaining Williams of Carlos Sainz and the sole remaining Alpine of Pierre Gasly. That feels like a nice battle for the best of the rest, Sainz versus Gasly, doesn't it, for a nice spot inside the top 10.
Absolutely, and it's good to see Carlos Sainz regaining some of that confidence and form. I think he had a difficult start to his life at Williams, but he's a great team player. He's very articulate, very good at helping engineers improve the cars. So it's good to see him making it through to Q3, and I think he's got a decent chance at a decent qualifying.
Well, and he'll want to get some points bagged, crucially. His teammate Alex Albon has got 18 points already and sits inside the top 10 in the drivers, while Carlos Sainz only has 1 point to his name so far, and that was 10th in China, and that only came about because the two Ferraris got disqualified ahead of him. So Sainz said he needed a few races to get up to speed with this car. The other thing that's also to note is Williams and team principal James Vowles have publicly said they are not working or bringing upgrades to this current car anymore. They are full focus on 2026 when we have a regulation change, which, well, if they're moving to 2026 already, I imagine some of those other teams in that midfield position especially will also start to do the same. So it will start to be a battle of, well, who can make those incremental gains and who can do the damage limitation towards the end of the year, because we have still got a long way to go, only at round 5 here in Saudi Arabia. We've still got to go to Miami in a couple of weeks and do the second of the sprint events there, and then we head into the European season. We'll be in Imola, followed by Monaco, then Spain, a quick outlier in Canada, and then we're back in Austria, Silverstone and Belgium before the summer break, and we round things off in December once again in Abu Dhabi. So there's a long way to go in this season, and we could have a nice tasty fight between those two McLarens all the way.
A huge fight between the two McLarens. I'm excited as well for the new regulation car. It's always an opportunity for everybody up and down the grid to just find something that someone else hasn't, and we could see somebody completely different at the forefront and at the front of the Formula One pack. Can somebody like Williams be back fighting for wins? That would be fantastic for a team like that.
It offers a reset, doesn't it? And there'll be a lot of people who say, well, why now when the field is so close? Are we going to rip up the rule book and go again? But that's how Formula One works. We are constantly looking towards the future and development and being at the pinnacle of technology and sport, and that's how this operates. That's how the sport operates. And right now, yeah, we have got a tight field, but we have got a team that is starting to escape at the front. So how will that feel in 2026? We shall see. But right now, we will focus on the here and now as the floodlights light up this Jeddah Corniche circuit. We're in Saudi Arabia for the 5th edition of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which you'll be able to hear in full Sunday evening after you've had your roast dinner. 5 Sports Extra from 6 o'clock in the evening. We'll have build-up from 5:45. But right now, the battle for pole position is on. The top 10 shootout is here. Q3 with 11 minutes and 20 seconds remain as they peel out of the pit lane, oh so slowly, trying to find themselves and give themselves a gap onto the track. Onto the track is Oscar Piastri, George Russell, Kimi Antonelli and Carlos Sainz all head out there.
I don't know how many times the average human blinks per minute, Harry, but you watch the onboard, the backwards facing onboard, to see the driver's eyes as they go through this Corniche circuit on a push lap, and I doubt they blink. I really highly doubt that any of them take their eyes for 1 millisecond off the track.
Because often you can see, and actually we can see 15 to 20 times apparently the average human blinks.
But it's a lot less for these 20 people right now.
You can see the whites of their eyes under the lights because they often wear a clear visor, don't they?
Well, a lot of drivers use a Bell helmet. Bell is one of the largest manufacturers of helmets out there, and they bring certain specific visors for night races. You have one that looks like the daytime visor, but it's more see-through, or you can use the clear visor. The other thing the drivers have is 3 or 4 tear-offs. They might go through one a session of those as well.
Well, all cars remaining are out on track. 10 minutes to go, 10 drivers in the fight. And this the sound of Oscar Piastri north of 300 kilometers an hour as he hurtles down towards turn 1. The DRS is open, hits the brake just before the 50-meter braking board through the left-hander, takes a bit of curb immediately into the right-hander that sees off the chicane, runs out slightly wide, keeps it neat and tidy and heads down towards turn 4.
That looked a little bit deep into turn 1. It looked scrappy through 2 and a bit too much curb there at 6 and 7. I wouldn't say this is his finest first sector, Harry.
Had a bit of traffic as well from Yuki Tsunoda coming through turn 7 and 8. Now Piastri is making his way through turn 12 and down the short straight that leads you to the left-hander. The 12% gradient corner of turn 13 spits you out fast round towards the other side of the track as you head out through 14, which arcs left, then curving right through 15, and then it's stop and start nearly through flat out 15, 16, 17 and 18. Before you know it, you're hurtling towards turns 19 and 20. Another dose of DRS beckons. Fastest of anybody in that first sector. George Russell is coming into the middle sector now as Lando Norris has just embarked on his first sector. So we'll see what the split time is once Norris comes into the middle sector of this lap. Piastri, though, bit of a rocky start to this first flying lap. He's into the final corner now,
as George Russell just sets the fastest sector too. So at the moment it's a little bit nip and tuck between Piastri and Russell. Yellow flag, red flag.
And it's a red flag. It's the McLaren of Lando Norris who is in the wall. Red flag, the session is stopped. Lando Norris has crashed. Where has he crashed? It's turn 6. It's on the exit of turn 6. Norris says he's okay. That is the last thing that Lando Norris needed. With all the pressure placed on the British driver to bounce back after a tough Bahrain, being outclassed by teammate Piastri, the McLaren pit wall cannot believe their eyes. In the moment where it counted, where it mattered most, Lando Norris has found the wall, and we're about to see where it happened. Out through the first chicane, heading down towards the left-hander of turn 4, comes in through the left-hander, runs out wide, loses the rear, and into the outside wall. And that is Lando Norris out of qualifying and out of the hunt for pole position.
We've seen so many cars just taking that curb and getting away with it. Unfortunately for Lando, with the amount of angle that he hit it at, and having an oversteer over the top of that curb, it's just sent him wide, and he was always arriving at the scene of the crime.
Lando, are you okay?
Yeah, all good. Idiot.
Don't worry about it, mate.
That was Will Joseph, Lando's engineer, just checking in with him, and you can see Norris then, and hear Norris frustrated with himself. Red flag out, so the session has stopped, which means the time has stopped as well. So 8 minutes and 32 on the clock. Norris is out of the car as the marshals now get to work with removing that McLaren, and that rules McLaren out of a front row lockout, to say the least. This is going to be a moment that we may well once again look back on come the end of the year for Lando Norris. It's moments like these when you want to mount a championship charge, when you've got the machinery to do it. A crash in the crunch point of qualifying, when you are nip and tuck with your teammate, that will weigh heavy on Lando Norris.
He's looked so strong all weekend, and yeah, to make a mistake is going to be hard to swallow. But look, he's got the equipment underneath him. He will be starting 10th as long as there's no other issues with the rear end of the car tomorrow, and there's every opportunity that he could still have a great race. But this now opens the door massively for Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen to try and grab pole position this evening.
Yeah, this could really allow the Red Bull driver to get on the front row, or maybe even a George Russell, a Charles Leclerc. They've also looked quick so far this weekend. Could this really help them out as Oscar Piastri makes his way back to the pits? So too does Max Verstappen. They'll be wheeled back in to their garages. Only Oscar Piastri had a lap time on the board before the red flag came out. Nobody else did, although we were about to see what George Russell had, so he'll be ruing that he didn't complete that first lap on the soft tyre. So too Kimi Antonelli, who had just come into the final sector. Tsunoda, I think, was on a build-up lap as well, and I think Carlos Sainz might have been the only other driver along with him, potentially Gasly, who were on their first flyers, who had to bail out of it.
So the difference between Piastri and Norris through the corner where Norris crashed, it was simply the fact that Lando had a little bit of oversteer while hitting the curb. Piastri was a lot straighter and got away with the same issue pretty much. They are hitting that curb extremely hard, and I think maybe the drivers, if they were to come back here in the future, would have something to say about the way that curb starts, because a lot of cars are getting a little bit of air time when they initially hit that curb.
Lando Norris is out of qualifying for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. He will start, if they can. They'll have to look at how much damage is done to that McLaren, 10th, but he is out of the running for pole position. And Andrew Benson, the BBC's F1 correspondent, that feels huge. When the door had been left ajar for pole, Piastri had actually had a bit of a scrappy first lap. Lando Norris, all weekend long, we felt that he had more confidence. This feels huge for the season.
Well, I mean, look, let's not get carried away. It's only the 5th race. Here we are, going to see a replay of it now. It looks to me like he just takes a little bit too much speed into turn 4, and he's got oversteer in the car as a result of that on the exit of 4 as he hits that curb at turn 5. Yep, there we go. He's still sliding when he hits that curb, and that kicks the car back the other way and into the wall on the outside as he's approaching turn 6. Maybe it's the confidence that's done him there. He's just taken too much. We should be doing at this point a banker lap, not pushing it too far, but he's obviously just taken a little bit too much speed, Sam, into that corner there, and it's bitten him on the way out.
I think it was a combination of things. From watching the onboard, it looks like he slightly missed the apex. He's then had the oversteer and realised that that's cost him time, got back on the throttle, and that's given the rear tyre a little bit more slip. In combination with hitting the curb, he's offline, and then yeah, he was always going to be hitting the outside wall. Massive disappointment for Lando, but as I've said, Harry, he can always bounce back. It is still so early in the championship. All these leading drivers in the World Championship will have a disappointing day at some point. No doubt this is a disappointing day for Lando, but he has a long time yet before the end of the season.
Yeah, that's the point. There's 24 races. They'll all have bad days for one reason or another, and they might have an accident, they might have a retirement, they might get taken out by another car. This is Norris's one. The key thing, though, is to make sure this doesn't keep happening. That's the thing he's got to do. I think it's a shame for him in terms of his championship that it was looking like a weekend where he'd got back on terms with the car, got back his confidence, was able to produce those consistent laps. At least it seemed that way until this crash now. It's how he bounces back from this. And let's not forget, he's got the fastest car by a mile in race form, so he's going to start 10th, but he could easily be on the podium by the end of this race, minimise the damage. He won't be leading the championship probably by the end of this weekend, but he can lose not that many points. He's just got to get his head back in the game for the morning, and I'm sure he'll be able to do that.
Overtaking very tricky around this track though, but we saw in Bahrain that Lando Norris had a mega start off the line and made up a few positions straight away to get himself into the hunt for the podium position, so he'll be banking on that come Sunday evening. So if you weren't interested in tuning in for that, well, I think you should be now. That will get going from 6 o'clock Sunday evening on 5 Sports Extra. Lights Out. We'll have build up from 5:45. We're under the lights for qualifying in Jeddah at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We're setting the grid for the race, and we're into that top 10 shootout and the fight for pole position, which has had a red flag come out for Lando Norris, who has crashed his McLaren. He is now out of the session. He's out of the car, said he was okay on the radio. He'll now be checked over by the medical team, but we are now one car down. And the clock stops at 8 minutes 32, and we'll just wait for a restart time from the FIA before we get back going again, this time with 9 cars. But of course, this now opens up, as you said, Sam Bird, the McLaren Formula E driver alongside me, a huge opportunity for somebody else to get on that front row. We've already seen Max Verstappen looking pretty nifty, but right now this feels like the ball has swung into his court.
Yeah, I think Max Verstappen will be licking his lips, as will the likes of George Russell and Charles Leclerc. What can they do? Can they stick their car on the front row of the grid? I think Oscar Piastri is going to be hard to beat for anybody, including Max Verstappen, who, dare I say, has been the closest thing to McLaren all evening. But certainly it does open the door for George Russell and Charles Leclerc. Do they want to get their car on the front row of the grid?
Right. Race control Q3 will resume at 9:01 local time, so about 45 seconds we'll get the green lights back on and we will get this session back underway. And we're just getting another look at this time from Max Verstappen's perspective as he makes his way past the stricken McLaren of Lando Norris.
He's all right, yeah?
I believe, yep. He's communicated he's okay, yeah.
Friends off the track, these two, and checking Lando Norris is okay, as that McLaren mainly looks like the damage definitely to the front left. They'll have to take a closer look at the rear.
Lando has hit the wall, exit turn 5.
Is he alright?
Yes, he's okay.
It's definitely both corners, Harry. There's no way he's got away without damaging the rear as well. It'll be the whole left-hand side of the car, but they'll have no problem repairing it for tomorrow, I'm sure.
Well, let's see when they get that car back being recovered. I'll have to wait until the end of the session as the clock counts down once more. 8 minutes and 20 seconds remain. We now just have one McLaren left in the fight, Oscar Piastri, the only driver who set a lap time before we got the red flag. The 2 Mercedes of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, the 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, and the 2 Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda, along with the Williams of Carlos Sainz and Alpine's Pierre Gasly, who are all in this fight, but only Sainz, Gasly and Verstappen are out there on the track at the moment. And this is the sound of the reigning champion, who now can smell the opportunity of a front row, maybe, just maybe, even a pole position. What a comeback that would be from last week.
What a comeback indeed. I mean, you saw what he did in Suzuka, and with his talent level and with that Red Bull, I think that Red Bull, it gets written off so far this season. I don't think it's as bad as what people are making out. I think Andrea Stella is perfectly just in saying, don't judge free practice. Look at what they do in qualifying, because he always is able to extract more in qualifying. I think they're turned down slightly, and a few tenths of sandbagging from Red Bull then gets extracted, and they're performing at top level come qualifying, or at least most of the time Max Verstappen is.
Max Verstappen out on track at the moment, who set pole position here this time last year, has won here twice around the streets of Jeddah.
Well, he set pole here, didn't he, last year, but also did one of, if not the best first 2 sectors I think I've ever seen anybody drive back in 2021 with that titanic battle with Lewis Hamilton. He came a cropper at the last corner, but everybody's eyes were glued on that lap. It was sensational.
The best pole lap that never was.
So this is used tyres on the Red Bull. This is obviously the tyres that he hadn't completed that first lap on. He looks like he's going to, he's going for a banker lap on these tyres. We'll see whether he can beat Piastri's original time. Piastri's original time didn't look as if it was his best lap, Sam, did it? But it's going to be a quick turnaround for Red Bull to switch onto the new tyres for another run straight after this one.
No, Oscar Piastri looked a little bit fast in, slow out through the turn 1-2 section, and then it was a little bit scrappy through 5 and 6 as well. He came alive in sector 2, but certainly I think Oscar Piastri will be sat there thinking, I've got 3 tenths in the pocket here that I can improve by, as Max Verstappen does improve and go half a tenth quicker than Oscar Piastri in sector 1.
The other thing about Piastri's lap is that he was neck and neck basically with George Russell's Mercedes through the first 2 sectors. Russell didn't get to complete his 3rd sector because of the red flag, but I think that just underlines how Piastri hadn't quite nailed it the first time around.
More time certainly to come for the McLaren man, but right now the man who is finding all the time is in the Red Bull, Max Verstappen, who is making his way through turn 21, a little bit down on Piastri through the middle sector, but not by much, just 0.03 of a second in that middle sector, with more time to find as the track can still build up, can still evolve. Just 9 cars now remain in this session as under braking the sparks fly from the underside of that Red Bull into the final corner. The left-hander of turn 27 gets oh so close once more to the wall, feeds it out of the final corner to the line with DRS open, and by 1,000th of a second it's Max Verstappen, provisional pole, a 1:27.559. How's that for a margin?
That is tight, but let me tell you, it's not done yet, because both of these drivers will be going out on a brand new set of soft tyres, and they will be fighting it out to see who gets pole position. We're now seeing Yuki Tsunoda leaving the pit lane on a brand new set of softs. What can he do? Can he get close to his teammate?
They'll be hoping he certainly can. Only his 3rd qualifying with the Red Bull team. They have announced that they are going to be running an intensive program for him in between this race. So we have a week off before we go to Miami, and they'll be putting him in the car to test him around the Silverstone circuit and running an intense simulation program as well to try and get Tsunoda more and more up to speed. Max Verstappen really was finding all the margins out on track, but he's clear at the moment by 1,000th of a second on provisional pole, but we're still waiting for pretty much everybody's proper laps to come through. Piastri hasn't emerged from the pit lane yet. This is Verstappen.
Very long grip, turn 1.
Yeah, understood. Tyres were not ready.
So that sounds like there is definitely more in the tank for Max Verstappen. Tyres with another lap under their belt, up to temperature, trying to find more grip through that first chicane coming through turn 1. He will be aided by a lovely toe. Oh no, he's going to go. He's not going to go again anyway.
No, he was always going to have to come back in anyway. He has to go to the new
tyre now.
But it's interesting to see, Harry, that the tyres aren't ready for turn 1, which is why we're seeing, maybe that's what happened to Oscar Piastri as well. Maybe McLaren have heard that radio message from Max Verstappen. Maybe they need to tweak their warm-up, emphasize working the fronts just that little bit more to make sure they're in for turn 1. If they can get turn 1 right, that could be critical in the fight for pole position.
So interestingly, Verstappen's come straight in, put on a new set of tyres, and gone straight out again. That means he was fueled up for 2 runs, whereas Piastri was almost certainly only fueled for 1 run on that first set of tyres, which just goes to show Verstappen is absolutely in this fight for pole with Piastri. It's really, really hard to call it at this moment.
George Russell out there at the moment, who has looked quick all year long so far in that Mercedes, really stepped up to the plate in the wake of Lewis Hamilton's departure, makes his way through turn 10, up over the curb at 11, out through 12 and heading down towards the left-hander of 13. The track is improving, Russell is improving on a new set of soft tyre, and he is up and fastest of anybody in the first sector. This is gonna be a last man over the line, surely, when it comes down to it.
Well, let's just see what George Russell does. He's absolutely wringing the neck of that Mercedes through sector 2. He's a couple of tenths up at the moment on Max Verstappen. This is looking like a great lap from George Russell, but has he gone too early? 2 tenths up on Max. Oh, and he goes a little bit wide in the end of sector 2 at turn 22, 23. Is that going to cost him by the end of the lap? I'm not sure.
He's dropped a couple of tenths, but he's still absolutely planted as he slams on the brakes, coming into the final corner of turn 27. The lights that illuminate this track glint off the silver and black of the Mercedes as he heads towards the line now. George Russell, provisional pole by a tenth and a half, a 1:27.407 for George Russell, but we've got more times to come. Oscar Piastri Piastri is back out there on the circuit. We'll see Max Verstappen again too. And what about Yuki Tsunoda? He's managed to get himself up into 5th at the moment on his time. We won't see Lando Norris. He is out of this session, having crashed his McLaren. The two Ferraris, we've still yet to see their times. Charles Leclerc and a struggling Lewis Hamilton, with Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz, the plucky midfield runners, hoping to disrupt the big guns.
It's very difficult not to will on Oscar Piastri right now as a McLaren driver, but he's done a solid job in Sector 1. He's a little bit down in Sector 2 compared to George Russell. That lap from George Russell, really strong. Oh my goodness me, but we've just seen Max Verstappen Sector 1 time, and he's looking so strong.
Verstappen, fastest of anybody in the first sector. The reigning champion bites back. Is this a fight for pole between McLaren, between Red Bull, between Mercedes? Piastri hasn't had the lap of his life here, comes to the line. What's it going to be? Fastest of anybody in the final sector, but only by a 10th. He takes provisional pole. It's advantage Oscar Piastri, but what about Max Verstappen? He's half a 10th up in the middle sector. George Russell is still out there on track, but he won't get another go at it. Max Verstappen coming through turn 26 now. Can he do it? Can he bounce back after a disaster last week in Bahrain? Demanding more from his team. Round the final corner to the line. The DRS will come. He's down in the middle sector, but can he get pole position? Yes, he can! Max Verstappen, never rule out the reigning champion, never rule out the Dutchman or Red Bull. And by 10 thousandths of a second, Max Verstappen takes pole position for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And when we all thought this was McLaren's evening, under the lights, they would shine brightly on papaya, with one car out of the game and the other one relegated to second. It's Max Verstappen who nicks pole.
What a first sector that must have been from Max Verstappen. We didn't see it on our television screens, but let me tell you, to be that far ahead in Sector 1 takes some doing. McLaren will be disappointed with this evening's work, but Oscar Piastri, P2 isn't the end of the world. Lando Norris down in P10 with no time, and Carlos Sainz up in P6. Great job by the Williams driver.
Brilliant. That was fantastic. Once again, another lap of the ages for Max Verstappen, who will start the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix on pole position. Alongside him will be the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Here is the Dutchman.
Yeah, that's pole position.
Oh, yes! Oh my God, guys. Simply lovely that.
Fantastic, Max. Fantastic. It worked very well, that strategy in the end there. So you nailed in 2 perfect laps. Well done, mate.
Yes, I'm very happy with that. Well done, everyone. Well done. The car really came alive in the night. Well done.
Breaks the outright track record as well here. 1:27.294 for Max Verstappen. Piastri second, George Russell third, Charles Leclerc fourth, Kimi Antonelli the top 5, with Carlos Sainz a fantastic result in the Williams for 6th. Lewis Hamilton 7th. Yuki Tsunoda will be left wanting more. 9/10 adrift from his teammate down in 8th, ahead of Pierre Gasly, and no time from Lando Norris. Assuming they can get that car rebuilt and there's no damage, he should start the Grand Prix from 10th place, but we'll have to keep you updated with that across the evening and into tomorrow on the BBC Sport website. But all the smiles on a Saturday belong to Red Bull and Max Verstappen, his 42nd pole position, and he clambers out of the car like it was nothing.
I mean, he's not going to give this World Championship to McLaren without a fight, is he? He's always there, and he does not make mistakes these days. He's learned from his early days in Formula 1, and he is bulletproof in that Red Bull. Even though the car isn't necessarily as quick as the McLaren, he's able to extract the maximum out of the Red Bull, and that's why, Harry, he's a 4-time world champion.
Brilliant stuff from Max Verstappen and Red Bull to steal it right at the very end. When we had, I know never rule him out, but we had kind of we all thought this was going to be a McLaren walkover.
No, I think we need to listen to Andrew Benson a little bit more, because he was the one pointing. Look,
not until Q2.
Max Verstappen is not out of this yet. He's there, and he's called it right.
Fantastic. Lewis Hamilton, that's a rather full-on image of him, helmet on, just looking at the timings page in the FIA garage, where he will see himself in 7th place with a 1:28.2. His teammate up in 4th with a 1:27.6. So still a gap to close for Hamilton on his teammate. Will Piastri be disappointed that he couldn't maximise his teammate, his championship rival, not being in the running?
Again, I think that, OK, he didn't quite maximise it, as we now hear the interviews.
Yeah, George Russell speaking to Jamie Chadwick. Although George Russell has just wandered off, actually, with the microphone. He's coming back now, and he's about to speak.
George, P3 on the grid tomorrow. You look a bit disappointed. Did you feel like there was more there, potentially?
Yeah, to be honest, before the session, I would have definitely taken a P3. But when I just saw how close it was, I was really happy with the lap. But you always think there might have been a little bit more in there. But, you know, being realistic, I think this was probably the maximum today. We know on these sort of higher speed circuits, we probably don't quite have the pace of the McLarens. And obviously, Max did an amazing job again. So, yeah, congrats to him.
We saw you lose out potentially a bit with the track evolution, doing your lap a little bit early. Do you think you could have maybe had a bit more at the end of the session then?
I can't really hear you, to be honest, but yeah, as I said, it was a really tricky session, obviously, with the red flag in the middle of the session, and we had to, you know, that one lap at the end was all that counted. It was quite interesting seeing the Red Bull do the 2 laps. But as I said, P3 is a great place to start, and it'll be a long race tomorrow.
Great job, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. Cheers.
Oscar, I was pipping you for pole for most of that session. It just got away from you at the end. What did you feel was potential there, and do you think pole was in the lurks at the end?
I mean, to be honest, I was pretty happy with it. There wasn't too much more left in that lap, so no, happy with the job I did. I think it was playing catch up a little bit through the first part of qualifying, and then yeah, that last lap felt more or less like the best I could have done. So. You know, I think Max has done a good job. I think, you know, it's another high-speed circuit for them where they seem to be having a little bit more success. But no, he's done a good job again, obviously. So yeah, still to fight for tomorrow. I think our pace is good. It's going to be a tough race, and the tyres are a bit softer than last year. So we'll see if that plays to our advantage.
Talk to us about how difficult it is to extract in a lap round here. It's such high speed. You guys are all on the limit. We saw your teammate make the mistake. You also fell proper a little bit at turn 4 on a couple of occasions. So how difficult is it to get that maximum out on that one lap?
It's tough around here, and once you kind of fall out of rhythm a little bit, it's very hard to get back into it. You kind of need to get all the corners right, because if you don't get one right, it means you don't get about 6 in a row right. So it's a difficult track for sure, but you know, at night with soft tires, high grip, it's one of the best tracks we go to. So yeah, a lot of adrenaline, shaking a little bit just from driving around the streets, but no, it's a really cool circuit, and will be a fun race tomorrow as well.
Great, good luck.
Thank you.
Max, that was an unbelievable lap, a track record. How much does the driver make the difference here? It looks like a track where you can really lean into finding performance just in those last few laps. So where you were from practice to now, how happy are you with the progress?
Yeah, I mean, very happy. I definitely didn't expect to be on pole here after FP3 as well, and looking at how the whole weekend was. But yeah, the car came alive in the night. We made some final changes, and yeah, it was a lot more enjoyable to drive. The grip was coming to me, and around here, you know, qualifying lap is extremely difficult because of all the walls. You need to try and nail it, and yeah, it's really satisfying, you know, to be first here in qualifying is of course the best position for tomorrow, even though I think tomorrow in the race it will be tough to keep them behind, but we're going to give it a good go.
You say that the pole sitter has won 3 out of 4 times here, so do you still fancy your chances in the race?
Yeah, we'll do our best. I mean, you know, so far I'm just very happy that we again had a solid qualifying, much better than what we had in Bahrain, of course, and yeah, let's see what we can do tomorrow in the race.
Thanks, Max.
Max Verstappen bouncing back after Bahrain to take pole position for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix ahead of Oscar Piastri and George Russell. That just about does things from Saudi Arabia for us for the evening. My thanks to the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, to McLaren's Formula E driver Sam Bird. We will be back with you, guiding you through every twist and turn of the race on 5 Sports Extra tomorrow. Lights out from 6 o'clock in the evening, ahead of build-up from 5:45. So make sure you schedule your Easter egg hunts around those times, please. And in it for the ultimate hunt, 4 different teams inside the top 4. Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, all vying for a Grand Prix victory under the lights in Saudi Arabia come Sunday evening. Hope you can join us for it. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.